All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Blake Kelly. I am an astrologer, and this is my first episode on my YouTube series of starting something about astrology. And it's actually really relevant right now about what's going on in the news. And I was actually inspired by a friend who is with me now, another fellow co-astrologer who posted something about this event that we're going to talk about. And Kristina, welcome.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I just think it's such an important event, I think, for like the history of the United States a little bit. So it's just going to be fascinating to dive into the chart. I love it.
Yeah. So to give you guys feedback or give you context, Kristina on Instagram had posted drum roll of when there was announcement that Donald Trump was going to be indicted. And obviously that is significant news in the United States because it's the first time that a former president has ever been indicted for criminal charges. It's huge news. Of course, we don't know what those charges are going to be. We're recording this the night before Trump will surrender to be arrested. And then that's actually when the announcement will happen of the actual formal charges. And we're going to look at that chart a little bit too. But after Kristina posted that, I thought it was like a really good idea maybe for us to just like look at Trump's chart, to then look at like what might be happening for him transit wise, and then also just talk about the day of him being arrested.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. There's so much going on, especially he's already had like a lot of transits happening after, his failed run the second time, but now we're like really getting up to speed, and we can see like in this chart there's just so much. So
yeah, there is. Is there anything you want to intro yourself real quickly for people?
Oh yeah, sure. Yes, I'm also a practicing professional astrologer. I'm at KLM, Kristina Martin Astrology. I'm just on Instagram and on my website. And I love astrology. I love connecting it to the dots of real time and real people. And we can like learn, I love, like he's having Saturn in his 7th house. And I've had lots of clients that have had that, and the different ways it like manifests, and, what are good things to do during that time? What are not good things to do during that time? And so, yes, I'm all here for it. Mm-hmm.
That's so awesome. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to look at the chart with me. I think one of the things I love about astrology is that you get to look at real life events and like mass events like this. Before we got on the recording, Kristina and I were talking about the Berlin Wall and like the astrology of the Berlin Wall falling. And it's just so like it's so interesting to look at it from historical perspectives and then use that as context for how we're understanding the astrology of today or in the future potentially.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like the astrology of today, like it's affecting Trump's chart, but it's like kind of affecting all of us. And what will it mean? What are the planets saying about this time, like this event, like the deeper meanings or the larger context of it? Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, let's dive right in.
Cool.
I'm going to present my screen so we can look at the chart of Donald Trump. So here, that's the chart. Okay. So we got a Gemini Sun conjunct North Node and Uranus. Opposite South Node and Sag conjunct Moon. And then we also have Leo rising at 29 degrees and conjunct Mars on the ascendant, which, I think is really interesting as well. Is there anything you want to point out there as well?
Yeah. That I think is phenomenal. Like born on an eclipse. I mean, it's really intense birth chart. That's always a really intense one. And then maybe too, I do like the Venus conjunct Saturn in Cancer. Also, that seems really prominent to me, him and his family and the connection there, but the difficulty with them and, requiring lots of like structure, maybe them to be super close, but then they have to follow all these rules. And I can see that easily with that. And then maybe that being a part of like maybe his popularity, that like there's something there that Cancer energy is really, sort of comforting or homey. Or I have seen that like Cancer can sometimes be a bit like tribey or like nationalist a little, like
Oh, 100%.
people. Yes. So
100%. The United States is the Sibley chart of the United States. There's so much Cancer energy.
mhm.
And I think it really speaks to the United States' perspective or orientation towards nationalism.
Yes, right. Nationalism, right. There's like just a strong need where like there's like, the scary outsider and you have to have the shell and, this is my, like soft underbelly, or like I'm fragile in here and you people have to stay away because you're too scary, or, like that early stage of Cancer that, that like home, little kid at home. That's the feeling I get sometimes with Cancer.
Mm. Yeah, and I like what you said there about like, formal rules, but then everything being tied to family, and like
Mhm.
obviously like it was his kind of like his father was the one that taught him, or like that. I don't know if taught him is the right word, but like it
Mm.
was a family business and that he kind of followed in those footsteps. And in a lot of ways, I think that like was trying to like live up to the same standards. And I think that
Mhm.
we can maybe see that play out in the way that he feels so adamant about being adamant about being successful.
Yes. Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, and it goes even more to the story of the opposition from the sun and the moon, south node being in the fourth house too. That's like such a strong sort of dichotomy between feeling, at home and like, appreciated and loved, for who he is, versus having to be like very successful and, reach these rules and go to the top. Only that's the only way you're going to be loved. I see it.
Mm.
Yeah, so much in his chart.
And also, I think being you like it's almost like one of the like kind of like the boys' club. Like you have to be like me, like I don't know, like old forms of patriarchy of like you have to be mean spirited almost to be like
Mm,
to be seen as like like as reputable.
yes, right, right. And
And
if we think about it, yeah, sorry.
yeah, and I just think that like having the South Node in Sag there, it really I kind of feels like it was like
Mm,
relating to just what you just said of like I have to be like I have to make sure that I'm saying this thing,
mm,
so that I can like make sure that I feel a sort of kinship with the people around me.
right. Oh my gosh, right. I have to speak their truth in order to like, right, feel like I'm, part of the family or whatever. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say I totally too agree with like the Saturn and Venus together is the restriction of love, the restriction of sort of the feminine or the soft. And so again, another nod to like having to be like really like tough and abrasive and like, a little bit more, aggressive in some type of way because of the restriction of softness.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um and I think that with the Sun North Node Uranus there, I mean,
Mm,
just Sun Uranus on its own is just like there has to be some way that he has to feel rebellious and he has to
mm,
feel that he's bucking the trend in some way, and
mhm,
that he has to feel that he's like an individual, and
mm,
there could it's about like single-handed upheavalness. And
mm,
with the North Node there as well, I think it's just like completely egging him on, and it's like almost this like relentlessness of needing, of him, and we've seen it played out of how he just like he can't, he can't seem to stop no matter what's happening. Like he just like regardless of what he has to say that is like demonstrative or horrible, and like the horrible things that he said to people, or it's like
mm,
he doesn't even, it's like almost like it's like pathological almost, like he doesn't
mhm,
understand, or it's not part of the context of him understanding that what he's saying is like affecting people. He's just like, no,
mm.
I'm just gonna say this thing.
I know. I feel like I totally agree. I think that sometimes that can be the shadow side of the like Sagittarius Gemini polarity, is like just needing to say it, say it, say it. And, regardless, these aren't water signs, they're not earth signs, like they're not really, set in reality nor emotional, comfort. So I totally, totally agree with that. Like very radical. And it feels like too, the like Gemini North Node just needs to be so swift and continually moving. And, like he's already done lives of doing the like Sagittarius trying to get people to believe him, like I have the truth, and now like it's all hands off, like not trying to get people to really believe him, more just needing to point out things, information, like the more simpler version maybe of Gemini.
Yeah, and I think it's like the polarity of the Gemini Sag that's really interesting in how he communicates things, because I feel like he tries to make a joke about everything. Like he really like, and like he's always coming up with like nicknames for people, right? And they're mean and they're kind of aggressive, but like he's always the one that's like trying to come up with a catchphrase to try to like convince people that like what he's saying is true, regardless of if it is true or not. And I really feel that that's that is the like Gemini Sag polarity, is like using facts and figures potentially, like as a way to convince people of like a belief system, like, oh, like I'm leading in the polls because this, like, don't pay attention to that, right? And like it doesn't even matter if he is leading in the polls or not. He can just say it and people will believe it.
Yes. Yes. I just feel like it's such Gemini magic. It can be really magical for Geminis to be able to like, it's like the cup game. I'm like imagining like I've got this ball in here, but if I switch over this and this and this and this, and like the ability to sort of go with the rhythms and change things and be like the magician a little bit in your ability to, make this pattern and do this and do that, look over here and try this. And it's so quick. And so like,
and yeah, it is. And I'm noticing, I mean, it's within 6 degrees, so I don't know if you would qualify that, but like the Mars in Leo is making either a sextile or trine to the nodes. And I really think that's even egging him on further of being like, I am, like, look at me, I am king.
Yes, exactly. Oh my God, right, because it's in Leo, so it is that. And then like just so motivated to self-express, like just has to, like you said, it's like almost pathological. There's just so much in his chart that's talking about that.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I just feel that like with that Mars and Leo at 26 and in like making that sextile or that trine to the nodes, it's like, it's like, I have to be, it's like, I have to be number one. And I think with the sun there, with the sextile, it's like, Gemini is like, give me the facts, but like Mars and Leo is like, am I number one? Right? Like it's like his incessantness on making sure that like he's doing quote well in the polls. And it's like not about whether or not he's doing a good job. He just needs to know whether or not like people love him.
Yes. Right. And how funny that's like, it goes from like a Sagittarius North Node up into then Leo. Like Leo is like the stepping stone to get back to like Gemini. It seems, like opposite in that way, where it should be the other way around. Like Sagittarius is the older sign, but still, there is something there about that. Like, and it is so with Mars there and the sun, it's like, it's all about him.
It is. And I also think with the South Node moon, there's almost like a gestureness about him. Like maybe that's more Gemini actually, but it's either Gemini or Sag, of like the gesture of like people didn't really take him seriously, but that's actually what made him able to be taken seriously. Like when he first started, when he first started running for president, no one gave him the time of day, right? And they were kind of like, okay, whatever. And like he just kept on making jokes, and they were mean, but like they were entertaining enough for people to want to know what he was going to say next. And so it almost got turned into like a reality television show of what is he going to do next? And people, I feel like it was like people got like captured by his charisma. I don't know if charisma is the right word, but like by the potential awfulness, I guess, of like what
Mhm.
he was going to do next, and it's like a train wreck that you can't turn away from. And
Yes.
and I feel like that's like what propelled him, because I feel like if any other person would say those types of things, like there's no way that they would be able to elevate to that stature.
Yeah, I fully agree. And it's so interesting too, like you're saying that, and I'm thinking like the the moon and the south node, they can be like, it feels like they can be really hidden or just like not quite so upfront, like right off the
Mm.
bat. But all of a sudden, maybe this guy does have the truth. He does have this like Sagittarius knowing the, overall, wisdom, or can really see the big picture of America. And
Mm.
like he's like, it's something that's like maybe shadowed in the beginning, but then really it is coming through all of the chatter that he provides. And but yeah, he's the reality TV part too, like the quippiness, the like quick little "you're fired," like
Yeah.
the 2 words. That's it. It's not this long run on Sagittarius thing. It's very Gemini. It's very Gemini.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yes. But
Yeah.
then
I
also, oh yeah,
No, go for it. Go for it.
I was gonna say I the Mercury square Neptune. He also has that,
Mm.
which I've thought and talked about like a lot, because that is a really difficult square to have in the chart.
Yeah, I think it kind of feels like, when he gets on stage, it's like he can make jokes and he can kind of like say what it is, but he also rambles.
Yes,
And
gets lost.
right, and I think that like Neptune and Libra, right? Like Libras are chatty, right? Like
Yes.
Libras are like, let's say the thing and
Huh?
let's just like talk for talk's sake.
Yeah.
And I feel like with that Mercury there, there's this sort of like he it's like he's trying to like perform a play, but he doesn't have the script.
Right, right, right. It just gets so lost, but it knows that it needs to talk. It knows that it needs to like get words out, and maybe make it sound pleasant. Like Neptune and Libra wants it to sound like palatable and enjoyable, and like like beautiful or whatever. Like use a lot of words like floweriness, but then the square to Neptune, and I've always, that's always been like a curious thing to me when people have talked about, does he know that he, like says one thing and then much later on he says, I didn't say that, even though like it's on record that he did? Is he purposely
Mm.
intentionally trying to kind of create lies and deception, or does he actually believe that?
I think that question is why people are maybe even more obsessed with him, because they can't figure out whether or not he is like purposely being manipulative,
Yes.
or if he's just like so oblivious. And like
Yes.
the problem is you can't really know that answer, right?
Right.
Like there's
Right.
no like no one is inside of his head.
We'll literally never know. Yeah.
And so I think that's also a really great observation of like people are obsessed in some ways, and maybe that's with the Leo rising with the Mars and Leo there too,
Mm,
of
mhm.
like what is up with this person, like why are they doing this?
Yes.
And I mean, obviously you can go back to a lot of the history of his family, and you
Mhm.
know and like I'm sure everything goes back to family, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And with 3 Cancer placements as well, it can probably speak to something around the idea of what what was it like for him to communicate as a kid, and like what did that really mean?
Mhm. Right. So much family and past and where he came from and all of that. It just deep in the chart. Yeah. I,
Mm.
I I totally agree. Like really shaping him so much. Like even, like a Mercury in Cancer, like wants to talk about family, wants to talk about sentimentality and the old way of doing things, like the past. Like it's a lot about that too, which is part of his rhetoric as well. Like let's go back to make America great again. Like it once was back then. So interesting.
Yeah, and like using sort of like, I don't know, like tradition, as you will, as an excuse for bigotry or xenophobia, or using sort of like traditional language as a way to almost like get people to buy into the like nationalist perspective.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. The like enjoyable language of, again, like Neptune and Mercury square, like the Neptune wanting to like please these people that have thought this way and not been able to talk about it because our society slowly is not allowing them to anymore, like, but being able to like wanting to bring that up and yeah.
Well, and the shadow side of Libra too is wanting things to be fair, even if they're not equitable.
Yes.
And I think that shows up a lot of times I've noticed in like shadow, what I don't know, like whatever you might call shadow Libra is like being insistent on equality, even if even if equality isn't actually equality in of itself, or that like it's all about justice but kind of for the wrong reasons. And I feel like that might be playing out too with the square of kind of this like dream of like what he actually might be thinking is justice, but like is in everyone else's reality that's not the case at all.
Right. Yeah, the like weird, sometimes too, I think too, like a tit for tat with Libra, like there is something there with that, like equality isn't always, there's can be some coldness to that, some harshness to that.
Absolutely. The other thing I was noticing too, I mean, I know we have like Chiron like kind of in the midst of this, but we have Jupiter in Libra, but it's also making, a sextile to his sun and moon placements. And his Gemini and Sag. And I think you actually said this on the podcast, or sorry, on the post of like Jupiter isn't its expansion, but that doesn't always mean it's good.
Yes.
And so I think Jupiter in Libra is like, oh, just say it, just keep going. Like, why not? Like, just stir the pot a little bit more.
Yes. Right. Using more language to, to like wanting to, I mean, Libra, right, wanting to make it fair, wanting to connect, but Jupiter and Libra, I got to think about that too. It's good. I mean, it's bad in him for
right,
his.
Right. I also think having Jupiter and Neptune in the second as well could really speak to him making a lot of money, but at the same time, like, I don't know, like with Chiron there really being really not feeling good. I mean, not feeling good about it, right? Like, and like, yeah, there's a lot of money, but it's almost kind of like with Neptune there. It's like, at what cost? And how much, how much has that been a self-sacrifice of him inevitably choosing to make all of that money at the expense of maybe, himself.
Yeah. And relationships too. Like it feels very much like I would think like a Neptune in the second house is relying on others, or having to sort of partner with others in order to feel like you have resources, or using other people as your resource. I have this friend who can do this for me. This person can, do a cheaper cost this way, or I have this partnership with China, and so they're going to do this for me, and like using that as a personal resource. But Neptune there, like the boundaries are dropped a little bit, and like, are they really going to meet you halfway? Are they committed? And feeling like tied into that, or that Chiron does provide a wound or pain around money and what is his, and if he's sacrificing all that. Yeah, totally.
And I didn't think about this. He is in his Chiron opposition right now.
Chiron in Aries right now.
And
Yes. Oh my
and Chiron
God.
in Aries is at, I think it's at
Ooh.
15 degrees. I'm almost positive. I'm not going to pull up the transits just yet, but because I want to make sure, but I'm almost positive Chiron right now is at 15.
Whoa.
Um, so like he's in his Chiron opposition. And so,
Yes.
they're like, uh,
Wow.
I think that could really speak to, the highlighting those wounds between resources, right? In the eighth house of
Mhm. Mhm.
like of using other people's money, and how is that now potentially coming to, it's going to eventually come back to bite him in the ass.
Right. Wound him again. Opened up that wound again.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Right. Wait. Chiron and Libra just feels like it's a wound around not being able to maybe find other people to compromise for what you want, or like there's some difficulty with getting your own needs met in a relationship. Maybe it's feeling like you never are, you never get equality in a relationship or something along that line. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, because he's had multiple marriages, and
Right.
I'm not as like caught up on all the intricacies of it, because honestly I like don't really want to know.
Yes.
um so it's not that I haven't done my research, it's just like I don't really want to know the intricacies of it. But I think it could also just be like he might be like looking for the pleasantries of a relationship, but he's not interested in the intimacies of a relationship.
Hmm.
And I kind of feel that based on how many how many times he's been married, that kind of feels like
Yes.
that's what's coming up for me. It's
Yes.
like I want the beauty and the love of what a relationship looks like with that
Hmm.
Jupiter there too. And
Mm.
but it's like not really like it's not really the true intimacy. It's more like, let's go out to dinner and like I'll get you a rose.
Look good. Yeah, right. 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 Exactly. Right. The difficulty in compromise. It's got to be like it's like painful almost for him to compromise, like a Chiron there. Mhm.
Yes, I actually really like what you just said. It's like it's almost painful for him to compromise, and maybe that has played out, right, in a lot of the ways that he doesn't know how to compromise in his life at all, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I
Mhm.
don't, with the way of what we've seen, right? Like he doesn't compromise on anything almost.
Yeah, I mean, if we think about it, the first like year of his presidency, he like almost his entire cabinet, everybody that he hired quit or got fired. There was like so many sort of relationships that were like started, I'm going to work with you, we're committed together, and then they break. So
Mm,
yeah, yeah, real wound around that Libra like relationship relating to others.
definitely. Is there anything else you're seeing in the chart before we get to the transits?
Um, let's see. I think we covered a lot. I love that I've never really thought about that Chiron and that whole bit in the second house.
I hadn't either, and now I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, that's some stuff.
Yeah, yeah, that's a wound right there for sure. For
And
sure.
especially because we also have Jupiter. He's also in his Jupiter opposition, right? Because Jupiter's in Aries
Right,
too.
right. It's
So
blowing it up. Yeah.
so it's like a Jupiter and Chiron opposition at the same time.
Oh my gosh. Right. Jupiter opposite Chiron too. Yeah. Yeah.
So let's add the transits now, because I feel like that's kind of where we're going.
Great.
Um, let's see here. So we're still at so Trump's natal chart's the inner chart, and then the transit chart is the outer chart. Should I go back to when he was arrested, or should we do when he was indicted, or should I go into when he's being arrested?
Maybe let's maybe start with indicted, and then we'll see like the difference if there's any because it was like a week ago, right? Just about.
Yes. Let me make sure. Let me find the date really quick, because I don't.
Mhm.
Okay. So the outer chart is when the news broke, or when the
Mhm.
actual indictment happened.
Mhm.
And do you want to lead us off here, because I know you had a post about this, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So maybe
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
you can talk a little about it.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So there's a lot going on. I mean, typically like the outer planets, Saturn and Neptune, are both just inched into new sections of his chart. Like Saturn is now freshly into the 7th house, Neptune is freshly into the 8th house, and that's definitely ringing true for this guy. Saturn in the 7th, so some like maturation needed in terms of how he's relating to others, how he's playing fairly, where his needs are getting met, and even like the restriction of people being so pleasant to him, people wanting to work with him so much. Like that also feels like that might be another version of Saturn in the 7th. You're feeling like maybe not everyone is wanting to commit with you. And so that's tough. And that's like fresh starting. So we have like 2.5 more years of that. So, we'll be seeing that for sure with him. And then too, it's like, it's Saturn in Pisces. So it's about where you need to sacrifice in relationships, where you need to like let things go and get to like a higher, state where you're losing more of your ego and blending in with the rest. So yeah, it's a lot going on there just with that one, I think. What about you? What do you think?
I mean, what I'm noticing is one, Neptune moving into his 8th, and like there being a issue now around shared resources, and like what does it really mean to pull your resources together, and how is that being used, and with Pisces too, it can be used as sort of like a I don't know, I mean, like I don't think he doesn't necessarily come out and talk about like quote like religious values, but he does use that base as a way to do it. And I really think that there could be something there around him trying to use fierce religion as a way to fundraise.
Oh my gosh. I did not think about that, but yeah, I can totally see like his rhetoric or the like words he uses, like, yeah, it just feels, yeah, like I think actually I was listening to NPR a little earlier today, and I think that they were describing it as well. He's like making it biblical, like it's like this huge thing that's happening, like yeah.
And trying to make himself out as a martyr.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Right on target.
Right. And like trying to be like, oh, I'm being persecuted against the state.
Yes. Yes. These people that I've like shared resources with, like the government and taxes and all of that, is a little bit part of the 8th house, and how you mismanaged the money that the American public gave to you to do fundraising. You used it for a different purpose, and that was not the agreement. And we're bringing it to the surface now because that was not right.
Right. I mean, the other thing obviously I'm noticing is the Sun, Chiron, and Jupiter all in Aries in his 8th as well, which I really just think it speaks again to it opposing all of his Jupiter and Chiron, and there being a issue around finances, like straight up, like right, and like it was with Stormy Daniels and like hush money for soliciting sex, and it's just like I'm paying someone off because I was in a relationship with someone I don't want, or something happened, or there was some sort of exchange that I don't want to talk about. And the 8th house is sex
and hidden things. Yes.
And like, how literal does that need to be?
I know, oh my gosh.
like it's finally being exposed. And I think it's because of the Jupiter opposition, and the Jupiter's like, okay, we're here to, I guess I don't necessarily think of Jupiter as exposing things, but I think in like the opposition in the 8th house, it's like, okay, we're going to illuminate, or we're going to make things bigger about what's happened here.
Right, exactly. Yeah, right. Make things bigger. And the opposition always does have like the tinge of just showing where things are too extreme, where they're like overboard. So, and yeah, this was like overboard in, like the scare tactics to like shut up this relationship that he did have. I mean, it was transactional, but it was still like a type of relationship. So yeah, very interesting.
Mm. And I'm also noticing the moon is at 29 degrees Cancer, and it's like right just past his Saturn and Venus, which again speaks to relationships and finances.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about the moon in an event astrology, it's, the moon draws like the daily focus or the focus of what's happening right now. And I think the moon in its last degree of Cancer is really highlighting, like issues with finance and relationships.
And I think you pointed out when we were talking about doing this together that the I think it was you or maybe that moon also opposite Pluto too that day. So another like bring to the surface these like intense emotional states that we're like fearful that something's going to happen, and bringing it out in the open.
Yeah, definitely. I wonder when Pluto moves back into Capricorn a little bit, because it's going to be I don't know, like I guess it's going to be within 4 degrees of his Venus again, if it's going to really like pull focus again within something that's happening within his relationships, because Pluto doesn't move back fully into Aquarius. Like it's going to dip back into a Capricorn a couple times between now and the end of 2024. And it actually does not move back into Aquarius finally fully until after the November 2024 election. The Pluto will be at Capricorn at 29 degrees during the 2024 election. And I think that that opposition here might be like the final sort of like, I don't know. I'm not saying that this isn't a prediction, because I don't think that this is a prediction, but what speaks to me is like the sort of like final story of something around his relationship dynamics with finances and money.
Yeah, it's got to be because of Pluto and Capricorn, right? And hitting that, touching upon that Venus and Saturn.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. There's something about his chart too that's like, it like lurks a little bit. I was so wondering, this past 2 years he's been having Neptune making a square to his sun, and moon, and so that, I mean, he wasn't in the public eye so much at that point, but that's like a drop in vitality. That's like a really confusing state, like making his own Bible, like all kinds of things that came from that.
And like him proclaiming that he's like Superman. Like on those like the NFTs or whatever, like he like made something to like look like he was Superman. And I really think it's like he's like trying to proclaim he's like some sort of messiah.
Right. But it's a square, so usually what you're shooting for needs a little bit more.
The way that I've come to understand Neptune is that no matter where you try to aim yourself, you'll end up somewhere else.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Like it's like, oh, I'm going here. Okay, well, I didn't go there, and now I went on 7 different journeys, and I wish I hadn't, because now I'm like worse than I was before.
Right. And particularly to the sun, you lose your identity. You're like, who am I again? Like what happened there? Yes. Yeah. Which, I mean, it feels like that Neptune, even though it's been the last like couple of years, like it maybe the wave did start when he lost the election. Like that was a big drop in sort of ego for him. And then this time around, like getting, another moment where collectively everybody is like, nope, you are not as, law abiding and great as you think you are. We're going to actually bring all this to the story, to the forefront, like reality, really.
Yeah.
Right?
And I don't remember the exact degrees of when this is going to happen later this year, but Venus is going to retrograde in Leo.
Oh, right.
And I think in his 12th house, like over his, it's going to be over his Pluto. I don't think Venus reaches 26 degrees before it retrogrades, but It's gonna, you know, like Venus in the 12th of like loss of relationships, loss of the sort of kingdomness that could come with all of that.
Yes. Venus goes up to 28 degrees.
Oh, it
So
does.
yeah.
Before it stations retrograde at 28,
At 28.
which is a degree from his rising
I know. Right.
on his Mars, basically.
Yeah.
So there's going to
Right.
be some tension with relationships
Oh
when it
my
stations.
gosh.
And I think in the 12th house, right? Like 12th house is loss, subconscious, like behind the scene things. I think that, you know, I mean, and, you know, Venus also, I think that Venus rules the law. And I think that Venus retrograding in the 12th could be like, that is potentially when, you know, crap could hit the fan.
I totally agree. Like I mean, jail is part of the 12th house. The like
Right.
spot where you have to be taken away from society. And yeah, I can totally see Venus, like the fairness aspect of it that comes into play with the law. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the value systems, like what we're gonna, you know, she's gonna be talking to that Mars saying like, what exactly do you value? You value yourself only? Are you sure about that? Is that going to go well for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Like as you said, like jail. Like I think it's like, you know, and I think the other thing that this is like kind of the start of all, I don't know, like obviously we can't predict and we don't know, but like there are multiple lawsuits there are multiple investigations that are ongoing around different things that he might have done to break the law. And I think that this is just the first. And it's like, how bad is it? Like not bad and not in a bad way, but like how many is really going to reach an indictment?
Yeah.
And what will that really mean?
Right. What will it mean? Right. And that's the thing too. Like, that's why it's such a kind of crazy time, because it's going to like, it already is setting sort of a precedent for, you know, the American people.
And that's where I think Pluto and Aquarius comes in, is like, it's not necessarily about, okay, like Trump's being arrested. I don't know. Maybe I don't really see it that way. I see it more as Pluto and Aquarius is here to tell us that the people that are in charge aren't all like things that we accept to be true as the way that things work will not always be that way. Right. That's more of my interpretation. And right. Like that news is the fact that a former president is arrested for the first time. Or,
huge.
Right. And like, that is huge, but like, it's more of like a paradigm shift to say like, it's not like, oh, it like Pluto and Aquarius like caused him to be arrested. It's more that like, it's a paradigm shift of like, people aren't always going to be quote kings. Right.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Right. Like this person who is sort of this like Capricornian boss who, you know, the law of the land, he's got everybody in his pockets. The Capricorn king on a, you know, mountaintop where he's had the full success and he has, you know, authority and agency all over the place. But like Pluto coming in is like, actually, no one has that. Even you, the highest of the high, this like president who was sort of using it poorly in the face of everybody, really going to make a show.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. I was when looking at, you know, that time of when Venus is going retrograde, which is going to be like, you know, July and August, the late summer. Uranus goes up to 23 degrees right before it stations. So
right on his midheaven.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. Yeah, yes. Uranus on the midheaven is expect the unexpected.
Right. With your reputation.
Right.
Yeah.
And Uranus is going to be ruled by that Venus retrograde.
Because it's in Taurus. Oh my gosh.
It's in Taurus.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Not looking the best.
And, you know, I mean, like shocking things, right? Like Uranus is here to provide shock value for the purpose of shock value. There isn't always a rhyme or reason. It's just there to disrupt.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll have to see what that really means for his reputation or for his public career.
Right. Right. And right. I mean, it's going to be, I was looking into it a little bit. Venus is going to be squaring Uranus 3 times in that retrograde
Oh
for all
my
of us.
oh my
But
gosh, I'm not looking forward to that. As someone that is Venus ruled, I don't know if
yes.
I don't I don't know.
Yes.
I mean, I'll just share. I have a Venus trine Uranus, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm team
You're
Uranus.
in it.
Like
Yes.
I don't have a choice.
Yes. Amazing. Uh-huh.
I'm team Uranus anyway. I mean, I'm here for I'm here for Uranus, even if it's disruptive of my own life.
Yeah. Right. Right. We need to break free. We need to grow. Yes.
Right, exactly.
Mm,
Oh yeah, that's so interesting.
yeah. Yeah. Really. So, I mean, yeah, right. Prominent for all of us to be dealing with, but
Mm-hmm.
particularly for him on
Mm-hmm.
his angles, on his first and 10th house cusp.
Mm-hmm. And the nodes will move into,
Mm,
Aries
mm,
and Libra as well. And I
mm,
wonder, I mean, it's probably going to be a little bit of time, but right, like the South Node is going to move over his Jupiter, Chiron, Neptune. And
mm,
I wonder if that is going to be again like loss of income, and the eighth house again is like death, sex, and taxes. So
mm.
like what sort of thing is he going to have to experience in that realm of uh taxes and things related to you know other other intimacy issues.
Big intimacy issues, right? And the like sort of like you're not, pulling him away from being like comfortable, cushy Jupiter in the second house. Like I'm all safe and everything is like
Mm-hmm.
great dandy. I just feel secure and grounded and all those yummy Taurus things. Like, no, this is Scorpio. This is eighth house. And it's Aries too in the eighth house. So it's like really revving to kind of destroy, being like, are you emotionally, like, is this actually authentic to you doing all this?
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be big questions about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's good
Rooting
insight.
out. Yeah.
And I'm thinking about how that's good insight. Shall we move on to the to tomorrow's
Yeah.
chart of when he's officially supposed to be arrested?
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. So this is the time right here below. We have April 4th, 2023 at 2:15 p.m. in Manhattan. That is supposedly the time where we will understand what the charges are, as well as when he's supposed to be arrested.
Right. Right.
I mean, something I'm noticing immediately again is Virgo is in the last, or the moon is in the last degree of Virgo.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 28, sorry, it's second to last degree, and it's making an opposition to Neptune.
Yes. Yep. Yes, right. So already there's like this, like, it feels like deep. It feels very deep.
Yes. And we also have Venus right on the midheaven.
Mm-hmm.
Oops. I wonder what that really, Venus on the midheaven is something to do with, like, again, relationship oriented.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in its own sign, so something to do with the body.
Oh my gosh, right. We're gonna see his body get arrested. We're gonna see a picture of him, his like beautiful face. Venus there at the very top. Yes. Also, it feels like to me too, like our value systems, like what is important here, like.
Oh yeah. Yeah, what value is, like, what's the value of having him arrested? What does this all mean? Because, I think a lot of people talk like, oh, he'll never be charged, or like, oh, he'll get away
Mhm,
with it, or he won't be convicted, or like he'll
mhm,
delay forever, or all this other stuff. And I
mhm.
think Venus and Taurus is here to say, like, I'm gonna be slow and steady, but justice will
Mhm.
be served.
Yes, yes, yes. Like this is actually in value. Like this behavior that he's had is not like the moral high ground. Like Taurus, like likes the best of the best, and so does Venus. And like this, schmoozy back and forth, not taking any responsibility. Like there's a lot of character and integrity that kind of comes with Taurus energy, and not having that. Taurus can be like the bull. It can be like showing strength when it needs to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that, like, yeah, it really speaks. I think Venus and Taurus on the midheaven really speaks to, it actually might be a really long time before he stands trial, or there is a potential conviction, but it will happen.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, right.
There's like assuredness there.
Yes, a steadiness, totally.
Um,
Yeah, I agree. And then even with like Mercury, also, freshly in Taurus, another bit of like processing the information slowly and methodically and like very earthbound. Like we're going to
yes.
do this all the right way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the midheaven being conjunct the North Node.
Uh-huh. Oh my gosh.
The midheaven of the event is conjunct the North Node.
Oh, that's interesting.
I mean, again, like, the North Node represents fated events, or things that might potentially happen, that there's like an alignment in some way. And
Mhm.
you having the midheaven there is like, okay, like something's happening with a public reputation and career, and in the terms of Taurus finances,
Mhm.
and around values.
Mhm. Yeah, fated for sure. This is a really fated moment. Yeah, it's gonna be mega huge.
Yeah.
Mercury square Pluto.
Mercury
That's a tough
square.
one.
Oh, the right here. Yeah. Mercury square Pluto.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, Mercury square Pluto is like, how I think about Mercury and Pluto aspects is, it's like, how bad is it gonna get?
Uh-huh.
Like, it's like communication of like, how bad is it really gonna get? And
Hmm.
um
Hmm.
I've seen charts where people that have, or their events that have Mercury Pluto, it's like always about like fearing the worst,
Uh-huh.
or there being a potential incredible power in the way that one communicates, but it's
Mm.
more about, are you the one that is trying to grab the power, or are you how are you using power in your
Mm.
in your communication? And I know there's a lot of, I think I saw something online that basically said, they don't know whether or not he's going to speak or not when he gets arrested.
Mm. Mm. Hmm. And I feel like this might be, well, I don't know. This could go either way. I mean, Pluto sometimes does bury things, so maybe it's gonna bury the communication or bury the information, or it could be that he decides to use this information in order to like um strike up fear, like use the, like you said, like the power of communication in maybe a not so good way.
Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. I'm also noticing Mars in Cancer approaching his Mercury as well.
Hmm.
And I'm wondering how much of that is going to be like pumped up anger issues,
Hmm.
and whether or not he's frustrated by whether he can communicate that or not.
Hmm. Right, because when it hits that Mercury, it's also going to square that Neptune.
Exactly. I mean, it's actually in a perfect square right now. Like that.
Yeah.
So like Mars square Neptune is like, I'm trying to assert myself, but no matter what I do, there's this like, there's this issue around what that really means for the context of other people or my relationships and my money being in the second house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. What that really means. Yeah, there's like some confusion. It might mean like he wants to say something or do something, but it comes across differently, or it doesn't come across the way he wants.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Is there something else you're seeing?
What a day.
Oh, I know. Again, that Jupiter and Chiron opposition, which I think is really
Yes.
interesting. It's also approaching to square his Saturn too.
Yes.
So,
right.
I mean, it's not quite, but Jupiter will square his Saturn as well, and there could be issues around trying to do things himself in the way that that's harming his business and harming the way that his networking and the people that he uses as a network opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
With it being a square.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yes. Yeah. And family. I wonder too. I wonder if family's going to get roped into this as Saturn is in Cancer, and like his like bombastic, me, and how that might hurt his family.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And also maybe how much, again, his family is gonna have to like steadfast support him to the detriment of themselves.
Yes. Right. That's a pretty big statement. Your father is the first, president criminally indicted, U.S. president criminally indicted. That's a huge deal.
Mm-hmm.
And not a great one.
I think this is, and then also we have the ascendant in Leo at 14, which is close enough to his Pluto.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So Pluto basically on his ascendant, which is like power, right? It's pure power and leadership in Leo.
Yeah. Right.
And
right.
It's making a trine to the current transit planets of it's just past now, but I don't know. I think a 4-degree orb is still the sun trine Pluto in Aries.
Yeah. Yes.
And sun trine Pluto is like identity and power.
Oh my God, right. Huge. Yes.
And that being on the ascendant, I think is really like, okay, well, like what's happening in power struggles, and how are you using power, and how is that affecting you as your identity and your personality?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like it's just going to be like so dramatic, like his identity, like really sucking in all of our attention.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. This is I can't, I don't know, like this, like when I look at stuff like this, I'm like, wow, like astrology is so is just like, it's such a reflection of what we might be experiencing.
Yeah. Right. The current moment. Yeah. Yeah. A lot. So much about his relationships, so much about, his identity. It's just all here. It's going through a real thunderstorm.
It really is. Do you have any last comments? Do you have any last observations?
I don't normally work too much with quincunxes, but I did notice Uranus making a quincunx to his Jupiter.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've actually tried to understand quincunxes a lot more this year. I listened to a lecture on quincunxes that was actually at the astrology conference that we met at.
Oh, nice.
And because I have a couple of quincunxes in my chart, and the way that it is described is basically that like there's this insatiable sort of trying to understand each other while not really being able to. It's like you're both trying to like figure it out together, and the more you figure it out, the less you understand.
Tough.
It's like you're both willing and committed, and then you end up like worse off than you were before.
Oh no. Oh no.
But it's like this insatiable sort of like I need to grow, and it's like this like friction that is helping me grow, but it's like not pleasant.
Yes, I've heard like it's kind of the same thing, and that like there's this sort of idea where like it's not an opposition, so you can't see each other fully, you can't see the two parts completely, so there's like something like that's kind of like around the corner, it's like just out of your eyesight. So yeah, the like difficulty in really not like there's a difficulty in perception, you're not really like seeing exactly what's going on, and then you're working towards the same thing, but you're working just in each other's way almost, or just troubling each other.
Yeah, and I think that Uranus, being transiting Uranus in the 9th house in Taurus, making a quincunx to that Libra in the 2nd, is like issues or surprises around. I think of the 9th house, and you can tell me your opinion or thoughts on the 9th house. I sometimes think of the 9th house as like institutions, and I don't mean that necessarily within like government per se, but like institutions as like or organizations of like how you like lead in that way. But that's sort of that's kind of been my understanding sometimes of the 9th. What is your take on the 9th?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense, because it's like collectively, you know, we're like a collective group that has sort of decided on a truth or a broader decision of something, and then come together to like, you know, make it kind of happen, or work together to make it happen. So like, like law is part of the 9th. Everybody, you know, like collectively we've agreed that, you know, you can't murder somebody. That's a bad thing to do. And so it makes sense. Yeah, I totally see that.
And I think that in the 9th, it's like, it's a disruption of what that means to him. And like quincunxing the Jupiter is the expansion of like how money, again, conjunct that Chiron. I really think that Chiron is, I can't believe I'm just now noticing that, but like how much that there's like a wounding there around, especially with Jupiter there too, of like belief systems, and how maybe he thinks he could get away with it.
Yep. Yeah.
And Venus on the midheaven is like, no, sir.
You thought you were cute. Yeah.
You gotta love Venus, because you know, everyone talks about Venus being this like beauty, art, and love, and Venus is really actually a warrior, and she comes to play, but she also comes to battle when she needs to.
Yeah, right. Like, not, you know, I mean, like true love and true beauty and all that requires battle also. Like, you can't just get that.
Absolutely. Well, I've had so much fun exploring these charts with you. Thank you so much, Kristina.
Yeah, this has been a blast. No, I've had a great time. I feel like we made a couple discoveries that I just didn't really pick up on the chart. So that was awesome.
Yeah, and I feel like we wouldn't have unless, you know, we just would have, unless we looked at the charts. Do you wanna say anything else, like before we outro, of, you know, talk about you know, share your handles or share your socials or whatever?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. So you're right. So I am Kristina. I'm at KLM Astrology on Instagram or on my website, and I do readings. I do relationships readings and individual readings, and I also teach and tutor. So if you want to learn about astrology, I love to teach other people to do it. It's just an incredibly invaluable tool, and I wish I'd known it when I was like 10 years old. That would have helped a lot. So I love to spread the word if anybody wants to learn. So yeah, that's where you can find me. That's what I do.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And this, of course, is my first YouTube video, and it kind of just got prompted out of the blue. So this wasn't really planned for me to start a YouTube channel, but here we are. And I am also a professional consulting astrologer. I do natal chart readings, and I also, like Kristina, I love teaching people. It's kind of what I help do as I'm in readings with people. You can find me on Instagram at Cosmic Period Empowerment, or if you are interested in booking a reading with me, I am at my website is whatisblakedoing.com, and there are links to book astrology readings there. So without further ado, we are going to sign off on this very first episode, but thank you so much for tuning in with us, and I hope you were entertained and maybe learned something along the way as well.
Amazing. Yes, I had so much fun. Thanks so much.
Of course. We'll see you next time. Bye.